Dragon Age Origins was, in my opinion, the best RPG of 2009, but that's something I didn't notice until only about 7 months ago, when I finally got my hands on it. I certainly wasn't initially all that interested in Dragon Age. Perhaps it was because I very childishly assumed it wouldn't be a quality product since it wasn't as graphically impressive as other current games. Maybe it was because I thought the plotline and story structure seemed too run-of-the-mill. Or maybe it was because I didn't realize until well after it was released that it was a Bioware product. In any case, I finally got it about 7 months ago and realized what a treat I'd been missing. So the main storyline is this. The land of Ferelden, which is divided by race, religion, and caste systems, prepares for the greatest danger it's faced in centuries, a blight, which is the attack of the nefarious race of Darkspawn, which are controlled by something called the Archdemon. Duncan, the leader of the legendary order of warriors known as the Grey Wardens, is traveling the land in search of new recruits. And this, of course, is where you come in. After a costly battle, it'll come down to your player character and one of your companions named Alistair to raise an army built up of the many divided citizens of Ferelden in an effort to make a final stand against the Blight. It's not an especially original structure or concept for a story, but it's certainly a very solid and tried and true formula. Now, the title comes in at the point where you create your own customizable character. You can choose from 6 distinct origin stories, hence the title Dragon Age Origins. You can play as a human noble, a dwarf commoner, a mage, a Dalish elf, or a city elf. Now, each of these stories has their good points, but it is worth noting that the dwarf noble and human noble origins do probably the best job of blending into the main storyline. However, my personal favorites are probably the mage, the Dalish elf, and the human noble, though I've played them all and none of them are poorly done in my opinion. No matter how you choose to play, you'll eventually encounter Duncan after you complete your origin story, and he'll recruit you into the Grey Wardens. The origin story is a bit arbitrary since it has no real bearing on the game's plot, unless you've chosen the dwarf or human noble stories. But even then, the influence is only slight. Mainly, the origin story you choose will change how you interact with and are perceived by others. And of course, it'll affect gameplay as with any other RPG, since the origin story affects the classes you'll be able to choose from, which include warriors, mages, and rogues. So, one of the things I really appreciate about Dragon Age Origins is the strong emphasis it puts on forcing the player into making very difficult choices. And that's something you'll notice almost immediately. It's not something that's exclusive to Dragon Age, of course, but there's something about the decisions you have to make in this particular game that, to me, seem more personal and carry more weight than even other Bioware titles like Knights of the Old Republic or Mass Effect, which of course are also some of my favorite games. For example, one of the first decisions you have to make as a mage is whether or not you'll help your friend and his forbidden lover escape from the circle of Magi's Tower. It really gets you thinking. Will you adhere to your duty and report them to your superior? Even more difficult, what do you do when your duty demands that you not only turn on your friend, but also spy on and deceive him into thinking you're still on his side? Does the call of duty sometimes ask you to go too far or to do more than is fair? What's the right choice to make here? It's not so clear-cut, and that's what I really like about this game. And that was just the first 20 minutes of what became a 40-hour-long story for me. That was my very first playthrough, and immediately you get to see just how important and how much your decisions will impact others in this game, and that's really, really strong and powerful stuff. But of course, not every decision has to be so difficult. No matter how you play, you'll have access to 3 different romance side quests between your party members, and of course, as with every Bioware product, the story is fueled by remarkable characters. I like just about all of them, though my favorites, and I have quite a few favorites because they're all so good, are Wynne, the old mage with a long and interesting life story to tell, along with a unique connection to the spirit world known as the Fade. Then there's Sten, a Qunari warrior who's an outsider in a strange world. We have Alistair, the wisecracking Grey Warden who carries an important secret. Then there's Liliana, the sweet, unassuming, gentle, young, and optimistic woman from the Chantry who has a darker past than you'd first expect. And of course, Morrigan, the pessimistic witch of the wilds with her own agenda. And the banter that goes back and forth between all these party members, it's hysterical sometimes. Especially when you get two opposites like Alistair and Morrigan. It's absolutely hilarious. though there are several other characters that'll come to you, they'll make themselves available either as you progress through the game or through DLC, and each character is backed by a strong backstory and excellent voice acting. And unlike Knights of the Old Republic, which of course is my all-time favorite game and I hardly have any criticisms of it, this game actually has a great resolution after the epic climax. In a lot of truly great games, like Knights of the Old Republic for example, the story just sort of ends abruptly, and the book is closed on what was a brilliant adventure. In Dragon Age, you're given enough information and context to know who's headed where after the journey's completed, what happened to the people you met along the way, and what path your character intends to follow. It feels like the adventure you've just been on is given a good deal of closure, but it also feels like the page is turning to another chapter for all these characters, rather than the book is closing on them, and that's really, really nice. The combat doesn't stray too far from the pause and play style, and the game features a wide variety of tactics and specializations that'll open up to you as you level up. One tiny issue I have is that the battles don't exactly look like battles. I mean, they're not bad, and certainly the finishing moves are pretty gritty and gory. But I mean, take a game, again, to stick with the theme of comparing this game to something like Knights of the Old Republic, which predates the next-gen consoles. Look at the fight sequences here. They actually appear to be dueling. Here, it's not as polished. It still works, but it could be more impressive. Again, it's just a small gripe, but it is there. As far as the sound system goes, Dragon Age is a real gem. The soundtrack is wonderful. The music is atmospheric when appropriate and thrilling and dangerous when necessary. Whether you're in a peaceful camp outside of a magical forest, or you're battling demons in a dreamlike world, the music suits every situation perfectly. The voice acting is almost universally good. The sounds of battle are all gritty and convincing. The only small problem I have with the sound is that the battle music doesn't loop into the normal track very well. You know, again, other games, older games like Knights of the Old Republic included this. Once you were finished with your enemies, the music would blend seamlessly into the usual track for the given location. I'm not sure why it's not involved in Dragon Age. It's not a huge complaint, but it is pretty jarring sometimes. Overall, the PC version is the superior one, since it includes a few features that were left off the console releases, and the graphics are perhaps a little bit more crisp. But I think the game's still great on the console too, as I've got the Xbox 360 version myself. Okay, so just to recap, the story isn't truly original, though it is solid, but the game makes up for that lack of originality by delving into outstanding situations and circumstances that constantly challenge and question the player's decision-making abilities. Structurally, Dragon Age Origins contains a pretty common story. Conceptually, Dragon Age Origins is a marvel. The little details that make this game unique really enhance its charm, and all of this is driven by well-written dialogue spoken through incredible characters, each with strong backstories. The combat utilizes a pause and play element as well as a focus on party-based tactical strategy. You need to approach different situations with different tactics, which creates a healthy degree of difficulty. Overall, the combat engine is good, though there are a few disappointments here and there, especially the final boss battle. The sound design is excellent, complete with a moving and atmospheric score, as well as top-notch voice acting, with only a few minor ailments, chiefly the option to leave off a voice actor for the main character, as well as the abrupt changes from battle music to the regular ambient tracks. Graphically, the game needed a bit more polish, but there's nothing severely wrong with the game. And there's a huge amount of content, replay value, locations to explore, and a good measure of DLC, which makes Dragon Age Origins one of the best RPG experiences in recent years. All things considered, Dragon Age Origins was a really delightful surprise for me, since I wasn't expecting anything special from it at all. I just thought it'd be like a ripoff or a rehashing of the Lord of the Rings and the countless other fantasy stories that follow that story's formula. But something about the unique characters and the vast world you get to explore, the music, the very personal and difficult decisions you have to make, really elevated the game in my mind. I actually enjoy it more than Mass Effect, and I usually favor science fiction to this sort of fantasy. If you were on the fence like I was, or for some reason never tried this game, or you're a fan of Knights of the Old Republic or Mass Effect and just never got around to playing the game, then I highly suggest that you get your hands on it now. You might be missing out on what you'll consider an amazing adventure. I know I was. Thanks for watching, guys. Bye.